Today, Hunter Biden keeps losing laptops. Joe Biden keeps losing control over everything. And American Express says capitalism is racist. We've got a lot to get into today, and it all starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez, and it is a normal Thursday. Things are back to normal here. We have Stu Burguiere back from vacation, host of Stu Does America, and of course Pat Gray with Pat Gray Unleashed. And it is a Pat and Stu day. So
yes,
thanks for being here.
The best of days.
Yeah, yes, yes, you are correct. And especially glad to have you guys here for this particular story, which I would just like to go ahead and warn the audience, if you do not know what's coming, not a conversation for small children. So if you have children in the room, consider this your warning. Hunter Biden, he just cannot keep control of any of his laptops. I think this is like the third one that we're finding out that he apparently has gotten, well, he says stolen by what he thinks are Russian drug dealers, which is nothing but good for the United States when you have his father as president, I think. No, absolutely not in a compromising position at all. But here is we're not going to show the video because you don't want to see that, okay? You don't want to see the video. Let me assure you of that. There is a reason why Hunter Biden has to keep paying prostitutes to have sex with him. But let me play some of the audio of Hunter Biden. This is Hunter Biden naked with a prostitute talking about how he had this other laptop that was stolen with these crazy sex acts. Watch. All right, listen.
I think he's the one who told my computer.
How long ago did this happen?
This summer, yeah.
So it would have been out already if they...
No.
They're out this summer.
Oh, yeah, they are. He is. He does. He also does, I think, $1 zillion.
So you're trying to blackmail you?
Yeah, in some way, yeah.
Russian drug dealers, maybe trying to blackmail him. What could possibly go wrong? I don't see any problem with that. So this obviously is a conversation that is taking place during Joe Biden's campaign, right? Because he says in it, my dad's running for president. So not that long ago.
It's January 2019.
Yeah.
2019. Okay. So that's
right there.
Yeah, right there. When I think right that was at the same time that we were having the conversation, or maybe we had the conversation shortly after, hey, maybe we should be careful with this guy, Joe Biden, because as it turns out, he and his son have a lot of weird business dealings with foreign countries that we probably don't want to have any sort of leverage on him if he were president. I feel like we had that conversation take place. But more importantly, how in the world do you keep losing so many laptops?
It really is fascinating. I mean, there are a lot of people who abuse alcohol, for example, right? Fewer people that would abuse drugs, fewer people that have sex with prostitutes on camera. But there are no people that lose 3 individual laptops in 3 individual situations. That's never occurred except Hunter Biden, and I can tell you that's science.
Who keeps buying him laptops? Right. At some point you say, you know what, I don't think you're responsible enough for a laptop.
Yeah, I mean, maybe try an iPad, something else. Maybe a notebook is the way you should go. I don't know. It really is incredible, and he's seemingly at one point in the, I only read the transcript, I will say. I did not go through the actual video, but at one point in the transcript.
You were smarter than me.
Oh, good. 'Cause I'm so sorry for your eyeballs.
Yeah.
There is at one point, he seems to refer to the camera being on. So he says something like, it's just when I have lots of recordings of me, and I have on that one there, or something like that. He kind of refers to it, which, it doesn't seem like he's serendipitous. How do you say that?
Serendipitously.
Yeah, that one. Filming.
Surreptitiously.
Surreptitiously, that's what I was looking for.
He's doing it on purpose.
He's doing it on purpose, and she knows, right? If you're the son of the president of the United States, or the vice president of the United States that may want to run for president in the United States, you don't record yourself having sex with a prostitute. This is I feel like Life 101. Life 102 says no matter what your dad does for a living, don't film yourself having sex with a prostitute. And of course, Life 103, you get into don't film yourself having sex. But any of those should be lessons that a man would have learned at this point in his life, especially when you're talking about blackmail opportunities, right? Like, it just shows how completely out of control this guy has been for so long.
Wait, what was the third lesson again?
Now I've lost it. Don't film
Now you
yourself
won't know.
having sex.
Oh, okay. All right.
Don't film yourself.
That seems
is the next one.
a little picky. Really?
Huh. All right. It's just not a good idea.
Whatever.
Especially when your dad is maybe running the free world in a couple years.
I do think your standards are pretty high there.
Yeah, I know. Again, that's why you got to get to Life 103 and 104 before you get to the tough stuff.
Pat.
What a class act, isn't he?
Yeah.
He is a real class act. And again, say it with me. If this was Donald Trump Jr.,
yes,
if this was Eric Trump,
yes.
Can you imagine?
But you know what? As far as we know, they've never been accused of doing anything remotely close to anything that Hunter Biden has done. They were like,
I don't think so.
True. I will say, who has been accused of basically this is Donald Trump.
Yeah.
They had no evidence of it, and they still accused him.
Yeah.
This guy's on tape admitting it, and no one cares.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
How many more things are we going to find out about this guy? The things he does and doesn't care about his dad being in the White House, apparently, or in the Senate, or vice president, or running for president. I mean, the guy just conducts his life in a really risky way,
a little bit.
regardless of what his
Are you saying that
dad
having
is
sex
doing.
with prostitutes and using drugs is risky?
Yeah, a little bit, maybe. Yeah.
Interesting.
And then putting it all on your laptop and then leaving your laptops around, probably
Right.
even riskier. So,
Yeah, there's some combination of that behavior that is, I'm not going to say okay, but I'm going to say maybe a little less risky. Like, I mean, how about this? You can have sex with a prostitute.
Yeah.
And you can film it. Just don't leave the laptops around. Even that standard he can't live up to. Like, this is not hard.
Multiple times.
Yeah. And look, he obviously is completely out of control. The drug problem is real and has been going on for a very long time, and he goes in and out of it, apparently. And if you've ever been around someone with a substance abuse problem, like, they can't handle life at all. I mean, at certain levels. And Hunter is the combination of someone who is that deep into it, who can't handle life at all, but also, as he seems to tell every prostitute he bumps into, has a lot of money, likely from Chinese and Ukrainian benefactors. $1 gazillion. Yeah. Now, of course, again, you're talking about managing your life.
Hold on. Not enough money to pay child support to his child that he had with the stripper.
Right.
Okay.
I guess he pays his hookers, does not pay his strippers. Right. It's sad. But it's like, you probably don't want to necessarily tell random strippers that you have $1 gazillion, right? Like, probably a bad idea. Like, they occasionally are tied to some untoward characters. And I'm not saying they are themselves, of course. That's just another job like anything else, and everything. There's no judgment of any action in any part of life. But it does seem like it's a bad move on a million different levels. And a lot of times, I go back and forth with this story. At times, I feel like he's just a really terrible son. He just doesn't care about his dad. His dad is trying to become president of the United States, and he's doing all these things with no effort to try to seemingly stop. He's doing it over and over and over again. And then on the other hand, I think, Joe Biden's involved in a lot of this corruption. Maybe not the sex with the prostitutes that we know of.
Bingo. Well, and not only that, the parts of it that he's not involved in, he's constantly enabling his son. I mean, I think that there's because I go back and forth with this too, it's like, well, can you always blame the parents when the kid turns out poorly? No, I don't think in every circumstance you can blame the parents. However, when you look at the way that Joe Biden has enabled him in the past, when you look at the way that he goes on television and becomes defensive of him and says, things like Hunter is the smartest person that I know.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I don't think that he should get a pass on that anymore.
Gives him a carve out for this ridiculous artwork scam.
Right.
Like, he doesn't need to do that. He could easily come out and say, look, I love my son. He's had all sorts of problems. I cannot justify any relationship with him at this time.
Yep.
He is the type of person who I love, but he's endangering my position here. And we will attempt to help him in any way we can, but I can't have an in-depth relationship with him. And I certainly cannot do anything but just say how terrible this situation is with the art, because obviously we know it's a complete scam, right?
Yeah.
We know he's not a good artist. We know that he's getting money for these paintings for no reason at all. And instead he comes up with a carve out. He hides the people that are buying it. He does all sorts of things and doesn't even come up with firm lines if he finds out who bought it. All he says is like, well, I guess we would have less of a reason to do business, with someone who might buy that art. And it's like, well, come on, we all realize that that's a scam too. So it really is a problem.
Yeah.
And it's not a Hunter Biden problem. I mean, it is a Hunter Biden problem. It's also a Joe Biden problem in a real way. And that's why this is a story that's really important. If it was just some crazy son who's getting mixed up in trouble, we've seen that story over and over and over again.
Yeah, and you see the parent who's reasonable and says, like, look, I can't defend this.
Yeah.
This is indefensible. They shouldn't have done it. But that's not what we see here.
No.
But my gosh, they couldn't ask for any more help than they're getting from the media.
That's
The only ones talking about it are us.
Right.
Because CNN hasn't touched it that I've seen. Has anybody seen CNN touch this?
It's the Daily Mail.
MSNBC? It's none of them.
And I mean, I guess we're lucky that we even had access to the actual story and it didn't get pulled from social media like they did to the New York Post whenever they initially ran a story of Hunter Biden's laptop.
Yeah, I had Peter Schweizer on the air not too long ago, and he's written all these big bestsellers, Clinton Cash, and a lot of these books that have unearthed all sorts of government corruption. He has at least one of the laptops. He also has the login credentials to one of his business associates' Gmail accounts with his permission, that he is able to go through and look at every Hunter Biden email and compare them with the laptop that he has. Now, I know he has one. I don't know if he has more than one. And so this is a guy who's one of the...
I feel like you need popcorn for this story.
I felt the same way when he said it. I stopped him in the middle of the interview. I was like, wait a minute, what, do you have the laptop?
What?
He has it. So he's going through it now. This is a guy who's one of the best forensic investigators on the planet. And he's a guy who has unearthed all sorts of stuff from dark corners of the dark web. When he actually has the laptop, we are going to know what's real in there. And he'll say, like, look, this is just a scandal, but this is real. And every indication is, he's told us bits and pieces of it, every indication is that this is not just a Hunter Biden story. It's directly tied to Joe. And you wonder, why would Hunter act so erratically? Well, maybe he's got the goods on this stuff, right? He might know that if this art scam doesn't go through, well, maybe I go to the press with X, Y, and Z. Maybe the relationship isn't good. Maybe maybe it's the other way.
Yeah.
Maybe Hunter is the one protecting Joe. And I don't think we've thought about it that way, but I think that's a real possibility.
Interesting. Well, and Peter Schweizer, isn't he the one who says that the Bidens are like the Joe Biden is the most corrupt
vice president in history? That's before all of this, right? That's before Hunter Biden.
Before the
and we really
stuff.
knew all of that stuff. I mean, he's going back to a long. He says basically the Biden family is almost like a crime family.
Yeah.
And this is a guy, by the way, who has been on 60 Minutes. He was the guy who unearthed how congressmen and women were insider trading and profiting off of insider trading, and he got that so much attention that they actually had to change the law to stop it. So he is like a man with real credibility, and I don't know when this thing's coming out, but he's going to have some sort of way for us to, I don't know if it's a book or a report or what he's going to do, but I'm very excited to read it.
And he's also the one who was talking about Joe's sister, right, being enriched by all of
the
this.
Brothers,
the brother,
all of them,
the daughter, everybody has been enriched in the Biden family, but through his apparent criminal activity.
everyone in the Biden family, not actually the American people. So that's That's
Right.
great. That's awesome. All right, we've got more to come. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Omega XL. So those of you who have some sort of pain, back pain, knee pain, neck pain maybe, the underlying cause is probably inflammation, and you have to defeat the inflammation or else it can cause permanent damage. Now, Omega XL does that. Okay, they attack the inflammation that is causing your pain, and you may think that you could use something like a topical rub or something that you can just rub on, and it's going to feel great for 10 minutes, and then it's going to go away. That is not going to solve your problem like Omega XL does, which our very own Pat Gray found out personally whenever he had it was an elbow problem, right?
Yeah. And with the pain that radiated down my arm, so
Yeah.
I couldn't lift things with my left arm. And once the Omega XL kicked in, after about a week, they told me wait about 2 weeks, and 2 to 3 weeks you should see a lot of relief. Well, after a week, I was starting to get some real relief. And after 2 weeks, the pain was gone, hasn't been back since.
Yeah, so you guys can't knock the natural remedies, all right, because sometimes they
Sometimes they're great.
actually work.
Yep.
You got to get started. If you're in pain, it could change your life. Go to Omega XL. If you go order right now, you will get a second bottle for free at omegaxl.com/news. That is omegaxl.com/news. President Biden, I mentioned in the opening that he's losing control of basically everything. One of those is within the oil industry. He called on OPEC to produce more oil. This is, of course, while gas prices are soaring in the United States, and he's just like shutting down the Keystone Pipeline and letting, by the way, speaking of Russia, giving passes to Russia to be able to do their thing when it comes to oil, but calling on OPEC instead of just letting Americans have their oil jobs and, letting Americans do it themselves. So I want to get your thoughts on that, but I want to bring into the equation Greg Abbott, who tweeted out to Joe Biden in the White House after Joe Biden called on OPEC to produce more oil. He said, Texas can do this. Our producers can easily produce that oil if your administration will just stay out of the way. Allow American workers, not OPEC, produce the oil that can reduce the price of gasoline. Don't make us dependent on foreign sources of energy. Seems reasonable. Seems reasonable that we could both make sure that Americans are employed at the same time that we are going to be relying on our own oil instead of relying on foreign entities and just low-key terrorist organizations as well. That's
a minor request, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
I
feel like it's.
Yeah, it's incredible that this continues to happen. I mean, we had come such a far way to energy independence, and I think one of the things that's interesting about this is they have these big plans right around the corner. We've got $3.5 trillion that's supposedly coming from the Bernie situation, not to mention the other 1.2. That is already being thrown through in a bipartisan fashion. And when you look at where this comes from and what it's leading to, you see that we talk all the time. We've done it a million times, and you have to do it. Green energy is too expensive. Green energy is not as efficient. Green energy doesn't work as well. It's all true, but it doesn't matter to them at all. What they want to do is lock us into the infrastructure so that they don't have to worry about this anymore. And the problem with getting Texas, for example, to produce this oil is that it locks us into a bunch of wells that are actually producing oil that helps. So you can't cut the corner with the green energy. Now you look at France, for example. France is a country that, when it was early, correctly jumped on the nuclear energy bandwagon and now produces about 70% of their electricity from nuclear power. In the interim, it has become unfashionable. No one can, of course,
Yeah, but
tell
look at
why.
all the nuclear disasters in France, one after another.
Really?
The piles of dead bodies. It's just, it's unconscionable.
You say none after another? Is that maybe that? Nothing's happened.
Never happened.
It's incredibly safe. It's incredibly clean if you're concerned about such things.
Yep.
It also provides one of the cheapest
renewable
energies, electricity rates in all of Europe. So what's happened, though, is now it's not trendy anymore. The problem is they're locked into all of this spending and all of this infrastructure that's targeted at nuclear. So their plan, of course, because it makes no sense at all, is to lower their amount of nuclear energy, but it's going to take them decades to get just to 50%. So they know that implementing and allowing drilling in Anwar and all these things we fought off over the time, it's not just about that particular thing. It's about locking us into this, what they would say dirty energy for a long period of time, which allows them no arguments to produce the Green New Deal. If we have not enough fuel, if we have to depend on OPEC, there are better arguments, right, to go for green energy. But they know that when we are producing our own oil, we're not going to fall for that crap. So they got to lock it in. It's the same thing with these programs that happen all the time. Family leave or whatever the program is. Once it's in, it's in. Yep. And that's why they don't want to go back and get, real American energy going again, because it actually hurts them. And so they got to go beg for OPEC for this to bridge this gap on the short term. They'd rather do that than have us do it, which is insanity.
It's a real shame too, because we could be 100% energy independent. Yep. We don't need Saudi Arabian oil or Iranian oil or Venezuelan oil at all. No. We don't have to take a drop of oil from them. We have enough to sustain ourselves virtually forever. And they never talk about that. They never talk about how we've got the biggest oil and gas reserves on the planet. And President Trump had us very, very close to energy independence. We were getting there. And now they've backed that off completely. And now we're going to have to be beholden again to the Middle East.
And it's not just and I get what Stu, what you're saying with all of basically the ends justify the means, but it's just in the meantime, how many thousands of jobs is he cutting? I mean, he halted fracking right in New Mexico, and then the Keystone Pipeline. I mean, he's at the same time that they are doing that, they are also completely wiping out American jobs. And I don't know if the White House is paying attention, but things are not great on the economic side of things.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be completely energy independent, but if you're going to get energy from other countries, Canada, a pretty good place, right? Yeah. And so pipeline would have been a really good solution there. They don't want it. That's the problem. That infrastructure sits there. That pipeline's there. It gets used. Everyone realizes that it's more efficient and a better way. And by the way, a much cleaner way to transport oil. But that again, the environment is not their concern. It never seems to be when it comes down to it. They don't. And nuclear energy is always the best example of this. I know you've had Michael Schellenberger on before, who is a guy who's a big time environmentalist, and I first became aware of him because he actually came off as honest to me. Why? Because he was an environmentalist who said nuclear power has real potential for the future. We all need reliable power if we can get it with zero emissions from nuclear. And no one seems to be interested in it except for a very small group of people who have actually looked at the evidence.
Yeah. Before we go to break, I do want to throw this topic in here. Joe Biden, who I don't know if you guys have heard, but he is traveling home to Delaware all the time.
17 trips so far.
Yes, 17 trips so far home, I guess, on the weekends. And he apparently will not release the visitor logs that he has, being that he is there so often and not at the White House where people would have to sign in, right? And Jen Psaki was asked about this. Here is what she had to say. Watch.
Go ahead. Dr. Jeff, I have a rapid fire 3 questions on transparency. As Ed noted earlier, the president's been to Delaware 17 times. It's soon going to be 18 and 19 times over the past 6 months. I want to know how visits from visitors and from family members with potential conflicts of interest are being treated for the purposes of White House visitor log disclosure. Also, I was hoping that you could respond to Walter Schaub's criticism of the First Son's art sales. He says he wants the shame on the president if he doesn't ask his son to stop. What exactly has the president said to his son? And the third question is, what spacing constraints are there in the White House East Room that are preventing us all from attending the event later today, especially considering there are no spacing constraints in this room?
One, I think we wanted to make it as transparent as possible and make the entire meeting available to everyone who isn't just in this room. So we are actually not discriminating against people who are covering the White House from outside of the White House briefing room. Second, I would say we have spoken extensively to the arrangements which are not White House arrangements. They're arrangements between Hunter Biden's representatives and ones that we certainly were made aware of. I don't think I have anything to add in that regard. And no, I can confirm we are not going to be providing information about the comings and goings of the president's grandchildren or people visiting him in Delaware. Go ahead.
It's just weird because I feel like I've heard from the same administration that they were going to be completely transparent and very, very ethical as well. They were going to be like at the top of the heap when it came to ethics, and it's just that we're seeing neither.
Yeah, I think what you missed on that particular statement was that it was a lie. They didn't actually mean it. They were telling you one thing, but doing another.
Gosh.
And that's what that was.
Well, that was on me, though.
Yeah, you just didn't get that.
That was on me, that I just didn't get that.
Especially when questions might arise as to who's this doctor that keeps showing up at your house with his bag of prescriptions
that isn't
for
named
your
Jill Biden.
dementia.
It is. I mean, look, you, especially considering the Hunter situation, you know, the comings and goings of some of his family members are really, really important for us to know.
Yeah.
And Hunter would be number one on that list, but not the only one. I mean, his brother and all these, and his sister, as we've mentioned, it would be notable there too. Plus, not to mention that who knows if these, you know, the people who are buying Hunter Biden's art are stopping by.
Right.
Who knows? We don't know because he's, you know, they won't even criticize. And that was a great question because it gave her an easy opportunity to say, look, we don't like this arrangement. However, he can do what he wants to do.
Right.
You know, they didn't even want to say that. They don't even want to have an ounce of criticism on this guy.
Yeah, what a great guy. What a great dad and son combination. All right, we've got more to come. First, we want to thank our sponsor, StartMail. So you think that you're using a free email service if you're using like Gmail or Yahoo, but they're not actually free because you're paying with your privacy. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention. I think if you watch this show, though, you know by now that big tech, they're banking on exploiting your data by selling it to the highest bidder. They got all of your information and they can sell them to all of these other companies. That is why I use StartMail. You should too. StartMail keeps your email private. Every email can be encrypted, even if the recipient does not use encryption. And by the way, when you delete an email, it is truly deleted forever. They use their own servers, not Amazon's, which means that they can't just be put out of business all of a sudden because someone else doesn't like their philosophy. It's very seamless to switch over to StartMail. You can easily transfer all of your current email data. There's no starting from scratch. By the way, you get unlimited anonymous aliases, and it obviously protects your main email address from spam and phishing attacks and stuff like that. So you got to try it out, okay? I'm telling you, we've got to stop using these companies like Google and Gmail that you are paying for with them taking your data. Okay, you got to start securing your email privacy like I did with StartMail. Sign up today and you will get 50% off of your first year if you go to startmail.com/Y. That is StartMail, that's with a T, start, S-T-A-R-T, mail.com/Y. You get 50% off of your first year. American Express Corporation apparently invited the Nation of Islam's founder's great-grandson to speak to employees about the evils of capitalism. This is according to whistleblower documents. Now, it's weird that American Express, of all places, would be speaking about the evils of capitalism. I feel like they've done pretty well off of the back of capitalism, so I'm not sure why all of a sudden it would be evil. But this was from the New York Post. They published snippets of Dr. Khalil Muhammad's lecture about race in corporate America, and he gave this to all of the Amex employees. He blamed the plight of Black America on systemic racism and said Amex must do more to combat its relationship with racial capitalism. I just can't. I just can't with these people. I wish that there was a company that I could use that I could feel confident was not like just didn't hate me. Just didn't absolutely hate me.
That's all I'm looking for too.
Right?
That's interesting that you say it like that. Yeah.
A low bar. Like
Yeah.
I just don't want you to hate me.
Yeah, like there are some great companies that like really align themselves with conservative causes that we talk about from time to time, and that's great. But I don't even need that with every interaction. I just want someone who doesn't personally despise me
and assault you.
Yeah, that's it. Honestly, they can even personally despise me. Just don't tell me about it all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
know?
So he says, so let me give you a couple quotes here. He says, I first say that American Express has to do its own digging about how it sits in relationship to this history of racial capitalism. We didn't get to the wealth gap by virtue of a series of bad decisions and bad parenting by Black boys, Black people. We got there through exploitative, extractive, systemic racism. and that you might have to willing to accept smaller profit margins in certain business lines in order to do the kind of work to address societal imbalance if you care about racial justice in the world. That's a lot of buzzwords in one seminar, Pat.
Yeah, I guess I don't care about it because I disagree with doing all of that. And we've gotten to a point in America where capitalism isn't really being done right by a lot of people. Yeah. It's probably a little more corporate than it needs to be. It's a little more monopolized than it probably should be. But capitalism has taken the world from 90% poverty to about 10 to 12, maybe 14% poverty in 150 years. So that included an awful lot of minorities, too. An awful lot of minorities.
Well, that was an accident on capitalism's
I guess.
part. They didn't mean to include that.
Happened to be swept along, but that is kind of what happens.
Yeah.
Everybody, in the rising wave,
right.
that, the ball boats rise with the tide. And that is what happens with capitalism. And capitalism has gotten us a really, really long way. And now all of a sudden, I guess companies like American Express just want to slam the door shut behind them, and nobody else can be part of the club anymore. I don't know. I don't know what the alternative is.
I don't either, but I mean, this speech was part of this critical race theory inspired training that included a whole bunch of other things. They have an anti-racism initiative now at American Express that forced employees to learn about systemic racism, white privilege, intersectionality. I also, as a business owner, I can't wrap my brain around all of these stupid trainings that these people are required to participate in, because you have to believe that it affects their productivity. Instead of doing actual work that you're paying them to do, you're making them sit in seminars that they, in all likelihood, are not even listening to. So even just on that part of it, it's like, as a business, you would think that you would finally come to the conclusion that this is not like a cost-effective way to do business, to pay your employees to sit in all of these trainings that they probably are not even going to listen to.
Yeah, and I think, when they do listen, we wind up hearing about them in the media,
right,
because they're so offensive to so many of the workers, which is a good sign. I mean, I think you could take that out and say the fact that these things continually keep getting reported and leaked is a good thing. The best argument for these things occurring is that we have a cabal of people surrounding those like Ibram X. Kendi and Robin DiAngelo and so many others that have built a business in which they get $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a speech to go to companies like this and give anti-racist training. And if they don't give that anti-racist training, they wind up in the papers for not getting anti-racist training. These organizations go and to find friendly people in the media to say, you know what, Amex turned down this anti-racist training. So there's an argument, I think, and I think it is actually true in some of these companies, that they're basically just doing this out of fear.
They don't actually care. They're not activists.
What you pointed out, that 90% of their workers are going to sit there and think of it as a day off and be on their phone playing, solitaire. And it kind of comes and it goes, and it's not that big of a deal. I think we all have been through a corporate training class in which that's true, right? Some dumb thing that is either so obviously true, try not to grope people like Andrew Cuomo, like that type of thing. We've all been through that. We all understand it. And, people go in there, and I don't know that anyone actually gets anything out of it, but companies do it anyway because they want to make sure they can say, if there's a big scandal, actually, I know we're getting accused of racism, but we implemented training of X, Y, and Z, and we've already taken these steps. So there's a self-defense mechanism, which is that's still a really bad answer, but I think for some companies it's true. The problem is it's not true for all companies. I think there are a lot of companies out there that really are trying to change the culture, trying to change the way people think, trying to change capitalism into something that it is not, and something that, if it was actually implemented, would really hurt the country.
And shockingly, the majority of these companies all run by white men. So that's interesting.
So strange.
But it really is weird. But okay, so Pat, last question on this. So you said, where do we go, right? Mm-hmm. Do you see, because I feel like there's no other option right now other than there's just going to be conservative companies that have to pop up that will take care of conservatives, and then these other companies will just service liberals. I don't see another direction that we're heading.
Doesn't seem to be one. The answer for the left is always boycott, and
Right.
we've always been resistant to that.
And look where it's gotten us.
And look where it's got. I know. That's kind of Glenn's thing right now,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of leaning that way a little bit too. I know Stu never will. Stu's
true.
pretty hardcore on the no boycott thing.
Yeah.
But what do we do?
Right.
You don't see enough conservative companies popping up to replace. Like, who's going to replace American Express?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. We should look into that.
I mean, there
Yeah.
are a lot of, obviously, like, for example, it's a financial institution. There are a lot of financial institutions that are not overtly against conservatives. The other thing, though, is there are not a lot that just come out and say, yes, we're conservative, come to us, right? So it's kind of hard to know.
Right.
Like, you might have guessed, I think, pretty honestly, that Amex was a relatively, I mean, it's a bank.
Right.
It's a financial institution. You might think
would
they might be
think.
conservative
Yeah.
or friendly to conservatives. And I guess when you find them out, if you can go to another place, you could do that. I've always been more opposed to like the organized boycott and all of that. But
if you as a person or as a family
Yeah,
say, I
individual.
don't want my
Yeah,
dollars
I don't want to associate
go,
with him.
Right, to go to a company that hates me.
Right,
I don't think that counts as a boycott.
No, I think that what I don't like is the organized sort of thing where we see on the left all the time people who don't even do business with the companies
Right.
that are just making up things and trying to pressure people into doing something, usually out of lies.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
often.
wow, does it work?
Yeah.
I mean,
It does
companies
change-
cave every day because of it.
I'm ready
Every day.
to fight fire with fire, honestly. I'm to that point. All right, we've got to take a break, but first we want to thank our sponsor, Built Bar, which I have a report. I have to report back to the audience because I kept bitching about not trying the Rocky Road bar, and I finally tried it. It
Oh, you
showed
did?
up. Yeah, I said that I would try it on air, but I was way too hungry before the show, and so I ate it before the show, and it is so good. It actually tastes like Rocky Road. I don't know how they do it, but they do it every freaking time. It is delicious. So those of you who have not yet tried Built Bar, you've got to try it. They're all covered in 100% chocolate, but they are protein bars. They're good for you. They're low in calories. They're low in carbs. They're high in protein and fiber, and you're going to feel like you're cheating on your diet and eating a candy bar. By the way, if you go to their website, you can get a mixed box, and you can try a couple of each of their 9 regular flavors, so you can figure out which one you like the best, and then order a ton of them because you're going to need them, because you're going to go through them very quickly. You can take my word on that. You can go to built.com. That is BUILT.com. Use promo code NEWS15. You'll save 15%. That is NEWS15 over at built.com. Well, we would be remiss if we didn't at least bring up the fall of Andrew Cuomo while we have Stu Burgier, resident Andrew Cuomo expert, and hater, really. Resident Andrew Cuomo hater. Can I say that?
Fair. I'm fair.
Well,
on
I mean,
Andrew
you
Cuomo.
fairly hate him. I would say that.
Well, I know he's awful, so I don't like
.com?
that about Andrew Cuomo is awful.com. That's true.
So Andrew Cuomo is still eligible, apparently, for the $50,000 annual pension that is footed by taxpayers, even as he is set to resign from office amid this, it was just the 79,000 pieces of evidence that they reviewed and determined that he had done horrible things to women. But he's still eligible for that pension. So,
That's great
good
news.
Yeah.
Great news.
Yeah. Now, 50K won't get you very far in New York. I guess that's okay.
Now, will the $18 million he has in his campaign bank account, will that help him perhaps achieve things in life? Not to mention all the other money he has.
The money
Yeah,
that
the
he
book.
made from writing a book
They
on how
stole
to
him
handle
$2
a
million off for the
pandemic.
book.
And weirdly enough, I don't think he included, I didn't read it, I don't think he included in the book that you send elderly people to their deaths in
Yeah.
nursing homes and then cover it up. I don't think that was
he did.
included in the book.
No.
Maybe that was a chapter that didn't get added
Yeah,
in.
it's shocking. He didn't focus on that all that much,
Weird.
except make excuses for it.
Weird.
Yeah, I mean, he has plenty of money. He's going to be fine, unfortunately, because he does not deserve to be fine. I mean, in all seriousness, a resignation with $18 million in the bank and a $5 million book deal is not an appropriate punishment for what he's done. Thousands of people are dead.
Yeah.
So
But that wasn't even what took him down.
No, it really wasn't. Though one little tweak I will say on that, because I think obviously you're right, and what took him down was the sexual scandal. However, I think with the other stuff, it still would have happened. I think he would have got.
He was too much of a liability at that point.
What the Democrats liked about the sex scandal, and I know that's a weird thing to say, but what they liked about the sex scandal is they weren't guilty of it, right? They were guilty of promoting this guy and the way he was treating nursing homes and COVID and defending him all that time. They were glowing reviews of his COVID treatment are all over media. So if we acknowledge that he actually was bad at handling the COVID crisis, then they have to acknowledge they were wrong too. On this one, they get to say, you know what? You heard Biden say it. He did a hell of a job as a governor, but he gave into his weakness. That's not what the story is. It's a part of the story. He's always been a terrible person. I keep saying that, Andrew Cuomo is awful. A lot of people will say he's awful because of these scandals, because of the nursing home scandal. It's not true. These scandals exist because he is awful. He is terrible at his core in every way. And the result of that are all these stories we talk about all the time. It's not because he made a mistake or anything like that. He's just a very corrupt, very bad guy that's only concerned with himself. Mm-hmm. And so all of these things sprout from that. The cover-up sprouts from that. The flippant treatment of COVID at the beginning, the too hard lockdown later, the not caring about businesses, all of this flows from that same central premise that he's just a flawed, terrible person who only cares about power and himself. Yeah. And that's played out here. And unfortunately, he's going to walk away with millions of dollars and a nice life in the Hamptons. And, yes, he'll have to deal with some stuff he doesn't want to deal with. But in the end, I think he's going to be fine. And he'll use that money to influence politics in all sorts of other ways.
Well, let's not forget, he was the same guy who said, we're not going to make America great again. It was never that great to begin with. I mean, this guy's a total and complete douchebag who also doesn't even love the country. Yeah. He doesn't deserve the millions he's leaving office with.
What happens to Chris Cuomo? Does anything happen to him?
I doubt it.
They're trying to protect him. They're trying to hold the line at Andrew. I mean, if you read the reports, you see individual one-on-one conversations between Andrew and Chris reported on. How would that happen exactly? If there were a one-on-one conversation, how would we know about it in every mainstream media report? How do we know that supposedly Chris Cuomo was the voice of reason in that room, telling Andrew, you got, it's the right thing to do. You must step down. That's there so that CNN, in its defense, can say, yes,
cover
of
the
course.
butts.
He advised, but he advised him to do the right thing. He was the good guy in the room. And we understand Andrew did a lot of bad things, but Chris is still a good guy, and we're going to welcome him back with open arms. That's just PR spin that's there for that reason. And they're going to try to get away with it. Yeah. They're going to try. They obviously are not offended. I know I would be offended as a business owner if someone did this to my business, right? I would be upset that someone put the credibility of my news network on the line to continually go to the media and try to trash women who have been assaulted, right? I would be pissed about it. CNN is not.
No, they're not. By the way, Chris Cuomo was seen partying in the Hamptons while his brother was dealing with all of this scandal. And we've got a little more on that when we come back.
Not with Hunter Biden, is it?
So Chris Cuomo was spotted partying in the Hamptons while his brother is going through all of this. Here, you got to see this. Look at these horrible dance moves. Look
so
how bad
douchey.
that is. Such a Guido
I mean, the douchiness just spills out of him, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm so cool, man. So I just thought I would share. I would just like to say, I have a 10-month-old who has better moves than him, and I can prove it. So who did it better? You guys decide. Let's see.
Oh, there's no doubt here. It's unfair.
It's the 10-year-old.
The 10-month-old.
10-month-old, right. Yeah.
You were thinking
that'd be a very small 10-year-old.
Yes. Or a very big 10-month-old. One of the two. That is adorable.
So, yeah, it's pretty sad when a 10-month-old can outshine you when it comes to dancing.
And honestly, with an opinion on politics, I would trust your 10-month-old over Chris Cuomo.
Oh, yeah, no question.
I would too.
No question.
He was screaming earlier, and I was like, yeah, I know.
No, I'm with you.
Have you asked him what he
Chris
thinks
Cuomo is that
of
bad?
Andrew Cuomo?
Yeah.
Have you asked him yet?
Oh, lots of screaming there.
Yeah.
Stu would be very proud to hear it, too.
Just like my show, basically. This is screaming about Andrew Cuomo all the time.
I mean, we're conservative, so we're indoctrinating them early. That's what we always get accused of, right?
Yeah,
we have to do it. All right, don't forget, if you have not yet subscribed to Blaze TV, you got to go there, blazetv.com. If you use promo code NEWS, you will get $10 off of your subscription. We don't know when they're going to shut us down, so make sure to join at blazetv.com.